Good morning. Welcome back to Challenge 5 of the XD Daily Challenge. I'm Marc Risen. I'm a local designer here based in San Francisco. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as Sam had already mentioned. Let's say hi to a few people that are already in the community. Mahul, nice to see you. Ryan, good morning. Aaron, Nayan. Hi, Samantha. Samantha's in the back. James, thanks for joining us. G, great to have you here again. So how's everybody doing? So we'll do a quick recap. We'll cover just the basics of what the Daily Creative Challenge is for XD and what we've been spending just a little bit over the last week or so designing things. And then we'll kind of get into the prompt today. I wanted to cover just a couple ways that you can kind of get engaged with the XD Daily Creative Challenge. So I've got the website pulled up. For those of you that haven't registered, you can enter your name and your email and then click Get Started. What that'll do is that'll send you an email in your inbox every morning and you'll get the prompt, which is generally how we kind of start each morning here at 9 a.m. We'll go through the prompt. We'll spend a little bit of time reviewing some of the work that we explored the day prior. We'll definitely review some portfolios and pull up some of your great work and talk about it and share it with the community. And then we'll spend the latter portion going into the demo for what the prompt is today, which is focused on taking the freelancer single page website that we worked on yesterday and transferring that to a responsive or a small screen size. So that's what we'll be spending our time doing the demo today. So make sure to get registered if you haven't already. If you've been a part of this, then I'm sure you can already understand the value of doing a daily challenge. We've all been on this journey for almost 6 days now. So every day we're kind of mixing it up and trying out new things, exploring from mobile to web. And it's a great way to grow your skills. It's a great way to get inspired and get exposure to other people's ideas. So thanks everybody for joining us. Enrique, we've got your portfolio pulled up, so we'll be talking about your work today. Alyssa, yeah, it does. It feels like it's been just last week. So yeah, make sure to say hi to the community. Feel free to ask us any questions if we don't get it into the session today. That's perfectly fine. We can definitely address it. We also have a Slack channel. So for those of you that want to kind of continue the conversation, continue getting feedback on your work or share your work in our community, we have a Slack channel that you can join, which will probably appear over my head magically in about 10. There we go. So yeah, join the Slack channel. We've got a lot of people from Adobe who are active. Also, the community has been super proactive in supporting and providing critique for everybody. And yeah, just let us know if it's Yanni or Laurel that you hear. I'm really curious to hear. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I do want to take a little bit of time. So this is the Slack channel. As you can see, it's really active. There's a lot of people sharing some work. And so this is something that you can be a part of. We also have the XD Daily Challenge screen, which kind of aggregates everybody's submissions and pulls it all into a main page for us. And this is a really great way for anybody to kind of discover other people's work or just see how things have been progressing. And what I do is each morning I come in and I start basically clicking through some of the links and kind of discovering new work and getting inspired by others. So why don't we start there today? First up, we have Finney. So Finney took part in the freelance website. This could be a fictitious freelance portfolio, which is completely fine. Anything you want to get inspired by. So we've got home, professional, experience, portfolio, and contact. We've got a nice big bold avatar, which, you know, depending on how you feel you want to portray your website, adding a profile photo can definitely, you know, help for people to identify and get an idea maybe a little bit about who you are. But it's really up to your discretion. So big bold title. We've got the About Me section, kind of framed in a color block. And this is one of the reasons I pulled up this website. I thought it was a really nice, interesting take just to show kind of this progress indicator or maybe the skills matrix of, you know, how in this fictitious character they kind of viewed their talents. The timeline was also a really nice touch, just kind of going over the progress, maybe from where they started and what their current roles have been. So really nice touch as well. And additionally, showing the sketches, just kind of giving us a little bit of an insight into their process, how they work, how they form their ideas, Looks like we've got some watercolors in there, which was probably a lot of fun to work on. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. Next we have Lakshay. So kind of a nice, simple, clean, white website with nice color splashes. Same basic constraints or requirements up at the top, which is home, about us, portfolio, and contact. We've got a page navigator, or kind of a page progress indication down here. Looks like some, just showing a little bit more of the process of the logo here. Nice showing it in situ. So a couple things, just by seeing it actually on the device, we can tell that this is probably going to scroll from left to right. We've got a lot of persistent UI by showing kind of the social validation, or where to discover this person through other mediums. And I'm curious what's going to happen with the hamburger icon up here. If it's not a hamburger icon, that's cool. Definitely implies that it's a hamburger icon. But thanks, Lakshay, for your submission. Next we have John. So John's got a nice composition, rose gold laptop. Haven't seen one of those. That's really cool. And it looks like we're looking at kind of an architectural, got the Frank Gehry in the background. So really nice grid, full bleed image with the color overlay is a really nice touch. It's just a nice way to show content maybe a little bit differently. Also, if you have a specific palette that you're using for the website, you can use color overlays in that way. I like the detail of kind of the about section for Frank. Also the use of the font in the background is a really nice touch. Nice juxtaposition of work. This would probably scale really nicely to a smaller mobile screen. And good use of a grid layout just to show the gallery. Bonus points for showing what the kind of hover state or interactive state is here. That was a really nice touch. And a contact form. Awesome. So I'm sure you probably, if you haven't already, excuse me, you can start to think about how this would translate into a smaller screen. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, John. Really nice work. And then we've got Mono. So here we're looking at the home page. We've got About Me. Make sure to, put your spacing in between each of the words here, just so that you, also for Hire Me, you could be using a really, really tight leading or spacing in between the letters. And nice use of containers. The drop shadows and the cards. Again, if you're thinking ahead about this, all of this will really scale nicely for a smaller screen. And nice use of the footer. It's really nice to see how everybody is kind of adding some of the additional elements to their websites. Footer is definitely a large component of single-page apps or single-page websites. Thank you so much, Mono. Appreciate you. Here we have Paul's submission. So Paul's got a really nice color palette. We're seeing some white and kind of a goldish hue, black. Really nice high contrast, focusing on the imagery. Really dramatic image in the background that's kind of center framed by having kind of the UI to the left and to the right of the composition. So really nice job. Really totally different mood than some of the other examples that we've already seen. So really nice submission. And this is from Alpa. So Alpa has a really nice full bleed image. This could be a personal photo. So hi, I'm a freelance designer. We've got an indication to navigate down, go through some illustrations as a tile, and then a quick footer. So really nice job, Alpa. I really like the kind of the warm and cools that you're implying with the color usage here. You've got like a sepia tone photo with kind of a nice bright spot color like a cyan. So really nice color palette. And thanks for your submission. And then we've got Enrique Nine Fingers. Enrique, thanks for submitting your work. A nice addition here, which is the accessibility for language, which definitely allows you to kind of reach a wider audience. So really nice touch there. We've got the logo on the left. Nice use of color block behind the text. Really nice way just to take more of a graphic or graphic element approach to the way you can handle the typography. One of the things I appreciated about Enrique's work was also just the micro copy, or the way that he's talking to you on his portfolio. So some of the work I've done, it was very conversational, which, I don't know, it just made it a little bit easier to read, just to kind of think of maybe about Enrique's personality or how he would talk about his work. So some of his work, really nice use of a grid, and then continuing the theme with the color block highlight behind the text. And then Feel Like Working Together, I thought was a really nice touch. It's a really good prompt just to say, you know, hey, I'm here, I'm open for work. Definitely important for a freelancer. So really nice addition. And thanks so much for sharing, Enrique. And then we've got Nico's submission. So again, nice full photo. We've got a title, Mug Designer by Passion. More about me, about portfolio, services, and contact. Really nice use of a carousel, also framing the imagery in an ellipse, which is a nice touch. We've got an indication of left to right navigation. And nice touch with the image here, the just ask. So the coffee mug is a really nice touch for the contact email. Nice job, Nico. So we got a couple more. Samuel. I am a code factory. So we got some interesting and nice use of like robots, kind of in the composition on top of the text. Even making sure that the illustrations land on each of the edges of the letters was a really nice touch. Framed compositional images in containers with drop shadows, and then kind of the contact form. So really nice job, Samuel. Thanks so much for submitting. Also the header and the navigation. It might be worth to scale up some of these a little bit. I'm curious to see them on an actual screen. I'm assuming you're probably using the 920 aspect. But maybe you can scale up the components in the navigation a little bit so that they're a little bit more clear, and also that it's a little bit more harmonious with the font usage that's used on the rest of the site. But I'm sure you tested it out on the device, so really nice job. And Avajit, really fun use of a kind of a color block that's coming in the back, a different shape. It's a really nice way to bring the eye in and help frame maybe focal points on the website. It really helps kind of his avatar and the image in the background to kind of get pushed into the back. So really nice framing. In this case, you're doing it screen by screen. So it'll be really cool to see how you take this into the mobile responsive. I'm really curious how you're going to solve for the color block and how everything's going to kind of scale to a smaller screen. So really nice submission, Abhijit. Good use of color, nice use of a 3-column grid, and nice use of the contact form at the bottom. Okay. This is from Dave Novak. So title or name up in the upper left-hand corner, the about and the words. Not sure what words mean. Maybe that was meant to be portfolio or works. And the about section, nice simple grid, nice use of color. All the images, have a nice muted tone that also kind of fits the kind of low contrast color that's picked here. You might want to test out some of the accessibility here just to make sure that the white shows up on this level of this kind of slate blue that you have, just to make sure that it's optimized for visibility. So really nice submission, Dave. Okay, so that's all we'll go over today. Everybody, thank you so much for submitting your designs. It's really great to just see the diversity and different approaches and how everyone's taking this project. I personally kind of spent a very short amount of time going through the color blocks and overall organization. And then last night, I spent some time going back into the portfolio website. you know, just like everybody, and just like I'm sure you do, I spent a lot of time thinking about what the design should look like, what's kind of the look that I wanted to go for, and I started getting into a little bit of a rabbit hole, trying to consider all the possibilities. And what was nice is I went back to my initial inspirations and my initial work that I felt really inspired by, and I just started there. And you know, it was a really good way for me to kind of ground myself in my thinking and just say, okay, these are the ones that I found that I felt really inspired by, so I'm going to kind of stick to those examples that I showed. So we've got Pablo's, Jared's, and Frederick's here. And so I spent a little time just thinking about how I'd like to frame the content. I added a photo. The juxtaposition of kind of the photo and the eye and the phone kind of leading into the text was a way that I wanted to kind of triangulate the information, just to make sure that as people were thinking about navigating my site, they'd be able to kind of help frame the composition and then know where to flow. I added a personal kind of branded icon of my initials here, so MAR, which could be something that I use into the mobile or responsive view to kind of create the hamburger interaction. And I'll just show this as a prototype real quick. So one of the ways I thought about this as a single page app is actually less linear and more about how you would navigate to the left and then down to the work. So then go down to about, and then you could go over to the contact view. So I'm always trying out new things. If we find out this won't work in a mobile, we can definitely try to pull it into a single page app, and we can definitely iterate on it. You know, one of the things is that design's never done, and so even though we may like this or we feel strongly about it, we can always iterate on it more and always continue to evolve it. So I could add some work in here. I thought it would be fun to just show you maybe a little bit of what I used to do. So in my About section, I actually started out as an automotive designer prior to getting into UI and UX design. So I added just one of my sketches here. This was a design I did for a Hot Wheels years ago. You can actually buy it, which was a lot of fun. Something I probably won't get into, but yeah, so I used to do this kind of stuff. So I just added that into the repeat grid that we already created. As you can see, it tiles all the images and basically just drops that image into each of the tiles. So let's think about how we can scale this stuff for responsive. I think one of the things I want to try, in the spirit of just iterating on work and showing you that design is never done, is we can do a quick rev on this. I still have my grid in the background. So I have my 960 pane, which is in the back, and then I have a 24 column grid, which is separated by 40 pixels and 40 pixel width. I took the XD feature over here, which Michael stepped in and shared yesterday. One of the reasons we wanted to show this is if you wanted to create the same grid that I have, basically what you can do is set the columns to 24 and set the gutter width to 40, and then the column width to 40. And then just make sure that you're actually, you can take it to the edge by reducing to 0 here. And one of the values in that is that if we were to scale this artboard, we can actually see how this 12 column grid, which moved from a 24 column grid, how that will scale responsively with the artboard as you scale it. So it's a really, really nice feature. So let's go ahead. We've got our grid. And then what I'll do is I was thinking about persisting the navigation at the bottom of the screen, thinking that this would be a fixed width website. And so trying to necessarily take the customer through a path as opposed to having them just kind of scroll endlessly. But we can still go back and think about this design more as a single page app. So we can increase our artboard. And I'll just start dragging this content over. Maybe that'll start to hint at just below the fold. And we'll try to keep the overall 8-pixel grid. We can get into the About section and then eventually end at the Contact section. So we can think of a lot of different ways to vary this design. We can think about alternating the text aligned to left or to right to kind of have the content staggered. We can think about pushing the content over to the left or to the right. One of the things that I definitely want to improve is that my photo that I have up here is kind of at a very hard break. And so I think it'd be fun if we could, you know, maybe take our color block or maybe use the darker color that we have and send that into the back. And then we can make sure all of our text shows up here. We could think about, we can go back into the links, we can update all those designs. Let's do that. We still have to move this over to a responsive version. Let's see, that's why. Border. Cool. So everything will show up now on the screen. We've got the grid. And then what I'll do is I'll pull over a mobile artboard just to think about how we can start scaling everything. So the first thing we want to think about is how we want to potentially have this navigation translate. So general rule of thumb is actually to have this go into a hamburger menu. 60 pixels is a pretty good dimension to think about for the height of this, just to make sure that it's clickable enough. And then we'll add our hamburger icon here. Just make this, let's do 4 pixel height. We'll do a repeat grid. Maybe, let's see, 6. Put that over there. So this will be a way that we can kind of invoke a drop down to anchor or navigate to the specific content areas. And we can take this and think about how we want to scale this work. Now, one of the things as you start to pull, you know, larger websites into responsive views, one of the things you want to definitely consider is, you know, I have this big image of myself, and some of those things have to get omitted as you're designing for smaller screens. Not everything can carry over, and not everything has to make sense to live onto the smaller screen or smaller device. But what you want to do is identify those points as, or what is the content you want to omit, and what are the things that you need to kind of potentially not show up on the screen. And so you definitely can take those creative freedoms. So we've got quite a bit of padding here, so we'll reduce that. And then what I'm doing is I'm just kind of scaling the text to not only be a little bit reminiscent of maybe what it was on the website, but also just to make sure that it scales to the device really well. So we've got 24 pixels. Let's put this up to 40. And, you know, maybe we can think about using just some preview text here just to indicate that you're going to want to scroll down. Center align that. Could probably add an icon that has a downward arrow, as some of you showed in some of your submissions. Let's see. Then we'll kind of take this same color block, pull that down. Can pull this a little bit up over the leading edge. Center line that. Something about this still feels a little bit strange to me. Let's see. No, 24 is the right size. Maybe we want a little bit larger spacing. That almost makes it feel like it's slowing down. Nope, that's the right call. Let's tighten this up a little bit. If we wanted to, we could use the icon as the hamburger, potentially, but it's just something that I've decided that I'm gonna use a basically a known paradigm that I think people would feel a little bit better using. So we reduce this to 80. And then this is 24 by 40. So one of the things that will happen is, because of the aspect ratio and the size that we chose for our photos, that is going to reduce the image to just like a 2-image carousel, which could create a lot of scrolling in this case. So we could actually reduce the images and do a 2-column layout. We could tighten it up and put a tighter grid. But just for now, I'm just going to leave it in the spirit of making a really, really long scrollable area on the site. One of the things I think would be really interesting is, if you were to think about how you'd navigate this on web, is you could create anchor points. So if you were to click on work, it would snap and navigate you down to that portion of the screen. So we'll fill out the about. This goes to 80. And this goes to 24 by 40. And we can scale this. Trying to keep our padding somewhat consistent and centered. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just get a feel for what this would look like on an actual device. So I can pull it up on the GoPro over here. Let me know if that's a good enough shot for everybody. So so everybody can kind of see that. Cool. So we have our screen. I can actually maybe show the actual website over here. And so this is kind of what we're looking at right now. So as you can tell, we've omitted the photograph. We're starting to work into the responsive view on a mobile view. You want to think about and consider the areas where maybe the browser or the kind of web or browser details will show up, like URL address. So far, I mean, everything translates fairly well. Text is really easy to scale and move over responsively. As we scroll down, we can start to see that, you know, maybe at this point, the image size that we picked is probably not what we wanted to go for. And also it creates a lot of scrolling. So a couple of things we could do there is we could reduce the amount of images that we're showing or find a different way to navigate through those different images via a carousel or scrolling. But we definitely want to enlarge these photos. Everything else, like the About section, text all scales really nicely. It's very legible. So this is just a good way to kind of sanity check your work, try to get a feel for it, see how these reach zones feel. You know, how does this hamburger placement work? I know originally I had the navigation anchored at the bottom of the screen, which would have made it probably a little bit more desirable for reach zones down here for your thumb placement. So something to consider. So, all right, so we're just about out of time. In the spirit of the daily challenge and trying to keep within the time constraints, I'm going to go ahead and take this current template. I'm going to show everyone how to export it, tag it so that it shows up on the kind of Behance board for the XD Daily Challenge. And then same thing, I'll go back later on tonight, probably spend a little bit of time iterating on this and trying to find the best way to push my design forward. Make sure to reach out to us in the Slack channel if you have any questions or if you also want some feedback. It'd be really good just to see how everyone's designs are progressing and how they evolve through that feedback. So I'll go ahead and export this. Just go click on the artboard and go to File, Export, Selected. And then we will call this, let's say, freelance _ responsive. We'll export that. I'll come back into Behance and click into my current project. I went ahead and uploaded the submissions that I did from yesterday as well. So we now have the website that I shared and showed the examples of that work. So those are up there. If you click on Edit Project, upload a file, and let's see, we want to click responsive PNG. So this is going to be a really long format image. For the purpose of sharing it and showing it on the daily challenge, I'll make sure to leave it up as the long format just so everyone can get an idea. But I'm curious how everyone else wants to kind of share and submit their work, you know, showing it either in situation or how you want to show longer format screens through scrolling. Maybe it could show up in different phones as you kind of scroll through the project poster. So we'll open that, and that'll start to show up here. And then you click Save. So make sure that it's in UI and UX for the creative fields for under Basic Info, and then for discoverability, make sure to tag it as XD Daily Challenge. That's all I got today. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for tuning in. I'm really looking forward to going back and looking at everyone's questions and helping push people's work along. Thank you so much for appreciating each other's work and pushing the community and sharing your ideas. So we'll meet same time tomorrow at 9 a.m. with a new challenge. And thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.